You have a trust, you have a holding company, you have a limited company. You should not be purchasing property in your personal name anymore. So if you have Ethereum, Bitcoin, XRP, that's a taxable event. There's Coinbase, Binance, lots of these platforms. People don't understand the tax system. People don't know they have to file a self-assessment if they have. So there's lots of uncertainty. Having an accountancy firm is a very unique position because I can view hundreds of businesses instantly. All of my risk really is in the business. I love business.
Is that the worst thing that can happen?
There is no point in working harder and harder and harder if you're handing over more and more tax.
Meet King Nobes, a dynamic accountant from the UK, skilled property investor, and seasoned tax expert. He's also a business coach and mentor, guiding entrepreneurs toward financial growth and stability. Let's uncover his journey to success and valuable insights in today's episode.
I am so happy AI is here. Lots of business owners will be replaced because I am a property investor. That is not my thing. I cannot look at a phone every day and see it going up, going down, click a button, I've sold it. Massive uncertainty with HMRC about cryptocurrency but everybody has bad things in their story. My mum was an alcoholic my entire life, really hard to describe. I will hold every property I have now when I die, guaranteed. The thing that scares me the most, not easy being an entrepreneur, it's a really... I grew up in London my whole life. It's very dangerous in London and it's also expensive.
Welcome back to Take a Seat. This is the #1 channel for mindset and motivation. Very often, we think about just making money, but on the flip side, we should also be thinking about saving money. I mean, how many times are you in a job and then you get that promotion that you always wanted and that salary increase, but the only thing that's actually going up is your tax, your NI, and God knows how many other deductions. So today I thought I'd bring on a tax expert. He's got his own accountancy firm, and I want to find out every single loophole. So please welcome John Noble.
Hello.
Or do I call you King Noble?
Both King Nobes or John Noble, it all works.
Where did that name come from?
So people buy from people, and I've got the accountancy firm, I've got the traditional business, but I thought people don't want to buy from a logo. So I started filming, started posting short form content, long form content. And I thought, do I need to change this name? And everybody told me, keep it professional, let people know you're an accountant. But when you go on Instagram, all you see is accountant, accountant, accountant. King Nobes is different. Your story, your message is why people watch you. It's not the name. So if you have a good piece of content and they can remember King Nobes, that is a brand. That happened by mistake because you don't realize how much traction you'll get. But as soon as it started building, I thought, okay, let's stay with that. That account has been called King Nobes for 20 years. Literally 20 years. It was just a random joke one day. And now it's the ethos behind saving tax, investing in property, the firm.
Love that, man. I really, really do love that. So if someone's just tuned into this podcast right now, what is one thing that they're going to learn and walk out with that they didn't know before?
Control and ownership of your taxes is how you retain as much money as possible. There is no point in working harder and harder and harder if you're handing over more and more tax. Sometimes if you have good guidance and you surround yourself with people who give you good knowledge, you can work just as hard as you are now, but keep 30, 40, 50% more. And that's the goal.
Brilliant. I love that because I want more money in my pocket.
Yeah, so do I. Everybody does.
I want to learn. So I've got a few questions straight off the cuff for you.
Sure.
Are there any tax loopholes only for the wealthy, or are they the tax loopholes that everybody can use?
So the wealthy use them, they utilize them, but they're not just for the wealthy. You can have it, I can have it, everybody can have it, but it's about reverse engineering why you have that in place and where it ends up. If you know, take property investing for an example, if you know that you want 5 properties and that's it, and it's a pension, well then you don't need crazy trusts and structures. if that is the goal. But if you want 50, you need to start at the end point and work back. They're not just for the wealthy, but it assists in becoming wealthy, which is where people think, oh, the rich have this advantage. No, they're rich because they used that for their advantage.
Okay. And are there any like common deductions that people just don't know about?
There's so many. Most people underutilize a limited company. Mileage, business mileage, working from home. If you're away from the office, making sure that you keep receipts and you use your business card. It's more about building the habits of being a business owner into your life and making sure that you understand how to efficiently use the company. That saves you the money. Spending pre-tax money or post-tax money, the difference is huge. If you have £1 and you've already paid 20% tax on that, that pound costs you £1.20. However, if you have an expense in your company, when you spend £1, you're saving 19%. The difference between that figure and the post-tax figure, that's the difference between £10,000-20,000 at the end of the year.
Wow. Yeah. But sometimes, like, even I'm a business owner and I get really confused because I'm like, do I use my personal debit card here for this coffee? Or do I use the business one? I'd love to use the business, but I don't want no one knocking on my door over a £5-10 expense going, you can't claim that coffee because that's not a business expense. And it's like, but I left my house this morning. I've gone to a meeting. Yes, I've done a little personal pleasure of going to the gym, my health. And then I've got a viewing a little bit later. Is this business? Is this personal? How do like HMRC see this, and how heavily do they scrutinize this?
HMRC are a business just like us. If the cost is wholly and exclusively for the company, then it's an allowable expense. Everybody's business is different. You could be creating microphones, investing in property, or owning a podcast studio. There's no set list of expenses, but if it's wholly and exclusively for the business, it's allowable. A lot of it is common sense. The most important thing is having a good accountant, because you could spend £1,000 of a personal expenditure on your business. That's okay, because we would just remove it from the accounts. We look at everything you do within the year and we say, we can claim that, we can claim that. That's a trivial benefit. That's not, that's a trip to Barbados. Let's remove it. So we make sure that all of our clients don't get in trouble. But it's better to overutilize a company than underutilize it. Because if you're using your personal card, we don't know what's going through there. And there will be lots of things that you spend money on, such as a mobile phone bill. If that is not through your limited company, we don't know what you're spending on it. And if 50% of that is for business use, we can claim it. So if you have everything going through the limited company, you save a lot more money. But it's about understanding the level of wholly and exclusively for the business, and this is nothing to do with the business. That's the key.
I think it's because like school doesn't teach us any of this sort of stuff. They don't. It's a very grey area. They get you ready for employment. Like, what do you want to be? A teacher, a fire engine man, a police officer, But they never go, you want to be this thing called an entrepreneur, and they won't tell you what's wholly exclusively. Like, these are like new terminologies that you have to almost learn after uni, or if you don't choose to go to uni and you end up doing a business, then you have to sort of work it out as you go along. And it's normally a big shock after your first year in trading business, because you go to your accountant and he'll ask you for a whole heap of things like, where's your receipts? And it's like, I didn't know I need to keep them, and oh, where's your business account? Well, I didn't know I need to set one of them up. I just use my personal account. So it's a little bit of a grey area. Like, for example, like if I was going to go to a networking event and I was like, look, I've got a big brand. I have to look 10 milli guy, for example. So I definitely need a new blazer. I don't want to be wearing a blazer that I wore before, and I want to look the part because it might get me a handshake to make more money. Is that blazer now a business expense?
There are a few things that HMRC are very clear on. And clothing, if it has a duality of purpose, which means you personally benefit, and yes, it could be for the business event, but also you wear it, it makes you feel good, it's not allowed. However, there are a few variations of that. If it was had your logo everywhere and it was marketing and branding, that would purposefully be for the business, because when you're wearing it, people say, there's Sean's business, there's John's business. That's okay. Or if it's safety equipment, which you wouldn't really want to wear to a
So
business
basically,
event.
just get Sean Land
Yeah, just a
embroidered on
tiny.
hair. A little stitchable one that can be removed.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that, man. I love that. Is it true that you can write off everything as a business expense?
No, that is not true.
Where do you sort of draw the line?
It has to be related to the trade of the business. Expenses are allowed in a company because they allow for the company to make a profit, and then the tax goes to HMRC and the government for spending. So if it allows the company to employ more staff, more people can see it, you can make more sales, it's allowable if it's for the company. All businesses are different. That's the key thing here.
There's a rumor that hiring family members can save you on taxes. Is that legitimate, or is that a risky move?
Absolutely, it's not risky. There's a few rules. Employing staff and employing family is no different as long as they have a role in the business and it's at market rate. What you cannot do is put mum, dad, Sally, the dog on a payroll scheme and they're not doing anything. Emails, admin, social media, packaging, anything that actually supports the business and they're paid at a market rate, absolutely. I'm a massive fan of the family unit. It's how you can utilize the thresholds, keep as much of that cash as possible, and it stays in the family.
How young can you have one of your kids working in your business?
So there are different rules for the ages, but 13 part-time, 16 more hours, but there's a threshold of 13, 16 goes up to full-time.
Okay, so you can have a 13-year-old.
Yeah. There are specific rules, and it depends on. It cannot affect their schooling hours, and it can't affect their life, but it needs to be legitimate too. So there needs to be a record of something they're doing. So if you were taking a photo shoot, and you were selling kids' clothing, rather than getting a child in to wear the clothing, you could pay your family.
Yeah. Or if, like, for example, my 15-year-old daughter, she was doing some of my social media for me.
Absolutely. They are better than we are because they've got a finger on the pulse of everything that's changing within the social media world. So it makes a lot of sense.
Mate, they're born with an iPad in their hand.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I mean? That's just normal to them. That's just like, putting their underpants on. Do you know what I mean? It's just so normal. There's something massive happening in the markets right now. So at the time of filming, this is December 2024, and we are currently in a bull run cycle of the crypto space. So we got cryptocurrency, you got the big daddy Bitcoin, you've got Donald Trump singing and dancing all about it. You've got the guy who invented, is it the Shiba coin? Elon Musk starting to work with the US government. And right now, I think if you are invested in crypto, you would have seen your crypto portfolios pumping right now. Bitcoin has just shyly missed 100,000, but they're tipping it to go to 115, 120, and it's like the new digital gold. But along with this, obviously comes taxes, capital gains tax. And being that crypto is such a new space, a lot of people are a little bit confused about what are we going to do in terms of, like, do we sell? Is it the normal capital gains threshold? Is there a clever way to do this? Some people are talking about, hey, you've got a portfolio worth a lot of money, go to the bank, get a loan against it so it's tax-free. Can you shed some light on some of the cryptocurrency space, on people who are going to be making, profits in excess of like 20, 30, 40,000 pounds? What is the tax-free amount, and how that all works?
There's a few things to consider. Most people who invest in cryptocurrency are doing it in their personal name, so they would pay capital gains tax.
Right.
If it were in a company, which can be done, it'd be taxed under corporation tax. Labour have just had the budget, and it wasn't as bad as everybody thought, but it was still pretty bad. They've £40 billion worth of taxes are being collected, and part of that is they've increased capital gains tax. So it was at a 10% and a 20%. Now it's at a 18 and 24%. Lots of people anticipated this, and they were selling lots of their personal assets, such as cryptocurrency, to crystallize those gains before that event. There's not too much you can do due to the numbers the gain they've made. So you can sell £3,000 worth of a personal asset tax-free per year. It was 6,000, and before that it was 12,000 and above. They do not want you disposing of this and not paying tax anymore. There's a massive uncertainty with HMRC about cryptocurrency because it's so new. It's so easy to transfer between coins, between wallets. It's not going through the banks. There's massive uncertainty. They are doing their best to work out who has what and when they have sold. And something that is key is the taxation point. It is not when you sell your cryptocurrency portfolio and get the cash. It is actually when you switch between coins. So if you have Ethereum, Bitcoin, XRP, if you make a trade between XRP, which is doing very well right now, and Bitcoin, that's a taxable event. But it's behind closed doors, because usually if you sell something, either you give me cash or I transfer you money. There's Coinbase, Binance, lots of these platforms. Nobody really knows what's going on. They're hoping people are as honest as possible. But human nature, there's greed. People don't understand the tax system. People don't know they have to file a self-assessment if they have a PAYE job and they've purchased some cryptocurrency, which was the new thing. And all of a sudden, they have a tax liability that they're unaware of. So there's lots of uncertainty. A slow way to release cryptocurrency is selling a small amount per year. But due to the volatility of cryptocurrency and the emotion involved, are people going to wait 12 months for the next £3,000 they can sell? Their portfolio may have halved, it may have tripled. It's an emotional thing.
What about when their portfolio goes up or down? So in the bear run, as they call it, so that's when everything hits the floor and, it's not, you have booms and busts in cycles. So during the bust sort of stage, your portfolio might have been at 20 or 30 grand. And now it's hitting, but that was in last tax year, but now it's like 100,000, 120,000. Is there anything that you could have done, or only when you switched the coin and realized that loss?
Something that's very key is if you have made a loss, and not on paper, I mean you've sold the coin and you've taken a loss, if you do not register that loss within 4 years, you cannot carry it forward. And what that means is if you have a £10,000 loss, the same as a limited company account, and you make £10,000 the next year, your taxable net figure is zero because you've lost 10,000 and you've made 10,000. With capital gains, you need to report it on your self-assessment. This does two things. It lets HMRC know you have cryptocurrency, and it also registers the loss. So if you have a capital gain in the future, you can offset the loss with the gain. We see lots of that. We see lots of people emailing saying, 4 years ago I had this, can you please make sure it's on the self-assessment, because they've waited until the last minute.
Wow. And with this cryptocurrency, like with Binance, crypto.com, Qcoin, how closely do they work with like HMRC?
There's lots of rumors about this. HMRC, there was a Coinbase and HMRC. I don't know if I'd call it a collaboration, but they said they were releasing the information to HMRC. And the rumor was that Coinbase actually had a tax liability, and that was part of the negotiation. Nobody really knows. You have anti-money laundering things in place for all of these companies, so they have to get your passport, your proof of address, confirm the bank account. So if they were to collaborate with HMRC, then they have all of the information if you've made all of your transactions on that platform. The best thing to do is to be honest, because you can say that you didn't know about it, but if you haven't prepared to pay the tax, in 3-4 years' time, if they say you have a massive tax bill, it could really disrupt things.
Is that the worst thing that can happen? Sorry, can you just pull your mic a little bit more forward? Yeah. Is that the worst thing that can happen, John? Like, you've just got this bill to pay.
If it was an honest mistake, it's at the discretion of HMRC. If it was an honest mistake and you had no idea, then lots of the time there's no penalty. If it is apparent that you knew what you should have done and you have deliberately disguised something, then yeah, there could be penalties.
So what is the definition of that?
The definition of that is, it's hard to define. It's hard to define. You would have to have an obvious case where they could say you've filed this every 3 years and this year when you made some money you didn't. Why? And you'd have to have a good story.
Hope you're listening, my crypto people at home. I've got this wicked crypto group. Yeah, we've been like almost like family for 5 years.
Yeah.
You know, when you get added, and then you've always got the funny guy, the serious guy, the one who puts the meme jokes in, the one who's the data analyst and going, we're going to break out. But it's just like, after this one, it's like main adoption is coming in, because the banks are taking over and it's going to be less and less profits. So all of these startups that were just like hitting 100% up, and it's going to be dying down, and everyone's going to be looking for the next thing now.
That's
if that makes sense. But it's been like such a ride, I want to ask you, what is the most common mistake people make? So you've got over, is it 400 people on your books?
400 clients.
400 clients. Is there a regular trait that you see? Obviously, you said people don't claim enough through the business, but is there a common mistake that you see that people make all the time?
A very common mistake is understanding VAT and not engaging an accountant early. So lots of clients come to us and they say, I've not prepared, and you can make the decisions now to be prepared for it.
How much do you have to earn before you go VAT registered?
So it's now £90,000 turnover.
That's gone up, right?
It has gone up. It was 80. The thing about VAT is lots of businesses cannot absorb that cost at their current prices. So they look at their profit and loss and they think, okay, I've made £30,000. But as soon as they go over the VAT threshold, that's not their real profit anymore. So making a clear decision of, am I a small, lean, profitable business, or am I trying to get to that 5 to 10 staff members, 10 times the size? Decision is so key, because if you end up in no man's land in the middle, you're less profitable than when you were half the size, your workload is 4 times as high, and you get burnt out, you don't enjoy it. And
so what you're trying to say is, for some people, it's more advisable to stay at 89,000 turnover rather than go to the 120. So that 30,000 just going to kill him, and probably end up.
You have to be deliberate. But there's an entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur, and it's a curse. I don't think everybody's cut out for this. I've had businesses where I plan to stay lean and profitable and have it as a side thing. And then before you know it, you just love the stress and the chaos. And when things are running smoothly, you're bored and you think, okay, let's double this up and let's double. It never ends. So there are people who have essentially a really profitable job. It's a business, but it's a really profitable job. They know how many hours it takes per week and they're happy. And I'm very envious of those people. And then you have people who all they know is business. When they go to bed at night, they're thinking about the next thing. Before they've finished a project, they're thinking about the next business. That's a very certain type of business owner, and they can't sit still. And the idea of staying just below the VAT threshold isn't a thing for those people.
It's not a barrier.
No.
So there's a few people at home who don't know anything about VAT, apart from they see a receipt
Yeah.
and they've paid for a coffee, and then there's a little bit of VAT on top of it. And then there's a toll, and they're like, well, that's the thing that goes to the government anyway. What does it mean when you're VAT registered?
When you're VAT registered, you need to charge VAT on your sales. Most of the time it's 20%. There are differing rates depending on what you do. You can be 0 rated. It's not as simple as you just charge 20%. If you're sending products to a different country, there's different VAT rates. It's very bespoke per business. So the business needs to be molded around the VAT schemes for that company. There's also different VAT schemes. There's a flat rate scheme where HMRC have taken the average of your sector. And if you qualify, you don't have to keep every single invoice. Well, you do have to keep them, but you don't have to submit every single invoice and take your input and output VAT. You pay a flat percentage on your turnover of whatever your industry is. Depending on what you, and the threshold for that, you come off of it at 230,000. So there's different thresholds when it gets to VAT. You've got pre-VAT registration at sub 90. Then if you go into the flat rate scheme, it's up until 230,000. And then after that, you have to be on a standard scheme, which is usually where lots of businesses really see a hit on their profit margin.
Wow. And like, in terms of VAT, so when you're charging VAT, is that your money now?
I wish. No, you're collecting it on behalf of HMRC. It's completely separate. So your business is made up of a profit and loss, income and expenses, and your balance sheet. The VAT portion is on the balance sheet. It's owed to HMRC.
So when an invoice is paid by a client and you've charged them VAT, you should really put that money in a separate account ready to pay HMRC. Is that right?
That's a prudent thing to do. Very hard to do because cash flow is the lifeblood of every business, and you need to manage cash flow as well as those things. Very few clients, they always start off thinking, oh, I'll just put some of my tax money here, my VAT money here. But when it comes to the end of the month and they need to pay everything, you need the cash flow to run the business. If you want to scale up the business, you want to employ more people. So this pot of money over here isn't really for the tax or the VAT. It's to scale the business, make it as profitable.
And then we'll pay it back later.
Precisely.
That's what it's supposed to be. And what's this about when you buy something and you pay VAT? Do you offset that? How does that work?
So when you purchase something, say you purchase something for £120 and you've been charged VAT, if you're on the standard VAT scheme, you can claim that £20 back. However, you claim it back and it's the difference between your output on your sales. Very rarely do you reclaim VAT from HMRC. Otherwise, they wouldn't do it. There's a few things to consider here too. You can backdate your VAT reclaims from when you first register. It can go back 4 years or 6 months, depending on if it's a service or an asset that's still in the business. So you can strategically register for VAT, and the first VAT return, you may get a reclaim, and then you can use that money to invest in the business. But on average, you're paying money to HMRC if your sales outweigh your expenses, which they should do.
I want to ask, right now, we're going through a technological era. AI is just booming right now. You know, even like, you know, Fetch AI, you know, on the crypto, like that one's booming, that coin, because of the technology behind. And we've got an app or ChatGPT. Everything has an app. You want to make a presentation, you got this app. You want to make some slides, you just put a video through this AI. It transcribes everything, turns it into slides. Oh, make me 8 questions for this. It will make the whole course for you. That's how intelligent it is. And it's coming for your sector. It's coming for your sector, John. You know, it's going, yeah, I can analyze your bank accounts for you. I can pull out all of these expenses, maybe flag up a few. We can input all of these company structures and tell you the best way to do it. I'll get letters through the post that, you know, we're an online company, and you know they're using systems behind them. How do you feel about that?
I am so happy AI is here, because when there's disruption to a market, there's opportunity. Lots of business owners, not just accountants, just business owners, will be replaced, but they will be replaced by the people using AI, not AI. And people buy from people. There's a human connection. We're all linked by handshakes, smiles. You can see a stranger on the street. If you help them, there's a bond there. AI cannot replace that. Every business owner starts off doing the thing for their business. And if they are serious about the business, they become a marketeer and they manage the operations. That's not AI. And I love this opportunity. I see it as an opportunity.
You're probably saying I get to have less employees.
Oh, but it does. It cuts down costs. It
Yeah.
streamlines everything. Everything. We've not seen a huge change in the accounting world with AI because it's very regulated and everything needs to be perfect. And AI is always evolving. So if you're asking a question and then all of a sudden you can go on Google and ask Google a question, which is what people just do, and it answers with AI. Whereas 3 months ago, you had to go onto a platform such as ChatGPT. It's getting better and better. But when it comes to your taxes, you need a human who's got experience and they know what they're doing.
I hear that. In terms of apps, etc., are there any apps that you recommend your customers to use to help make your process easier and theirs easier? Because some people are doing 10, 15, 20 transactions a day, and then they're literally taking these receipts, sitting there in front of the laptop, opening the Excel spreadsheet, typing them all in, putting it in the folder, ready to prove that that's what it was, and here you go, and then they're going to send it to you. Is that an old school broken way? Is there a...
That is old school. That is old school. Information.
No name's me.
Information should all be digital now. HMRC are bringing in making tax digital. They've done it for VAT. They're going to do it for self-assessment. Everything eventually will be digital. So the sooner people adopt that in any business, the better prepared they will be for when it comes in. We keep things very simple at our firm. It's a zero-based accountancy firm. Xero isn't a bookkeeping software. We don't have all of the other softwares. We have one software. We have one app called HubDoc where people upload things digitally. We have automation with the emails that goes out, reminding people. Everything's automated. We make it as easy for people to give us the information because we can only work with what we have. But as a business owner, you need to keep the variables as small as possible. There are accountancy firms that have 5 or 6 different softwares, but then you need 5 or 6 different skill sets, standard operating procedures to do everything. Keep it simple. We use Xero, we use HubDoc. Some people have Dext if they want to pay for it. But again, less variables, the smoother, and smooth is slow, but smooth is fast, because when you're rushing, if you have 10 people giving you physical documents, 10 people emailing it, 10 people WhatsApping it, it's a mess. It's a cacophony of just noise. What you need is just one simple process. This is business in general. And then you know exactly how it's done. And then when you bring staff on to scale up, you say, this is...
There's rumors that HMRC want you to do your accounts every quarter now. Is that coming in?
Yes.
When's
So
that happening?
that is the Making Tax digital system. That is what's come in for VAT. When is it coming in? It keeps getting delayed. HMRC are not the most efficient, effective organization. It's very archaic, very archaic. Their phone lines, they hardly pick up the phone lines. Sorry, HMRC, if you're listening to this. Yeah, it's really archaic. So naturally, everybody needs to move into the digital world. And now with AI, I assume this will happen much quicker. But they want everybody reporting more and more, because the more you report to them, the more tax they get, the less errors. It's all about collecting taxes efficiently and effectively for HMRC. And they're a business.
If someone out there is currently running a business, collecting a they first of all be worried. You do hear people getting caught, or will they get caught at some stage? And what are things that will
way of doing things. Cash is archaic. I like cash. I think it's freedom for the people. I think every time you spend cash, it's not on a ledger anywhere. However, if you want to deposit, and say you are completely legitimate, you're a builder, you're getting paid in cash, you've got all of your invoices, and you want to deposit the cash into the bank, that's a risk because they may freeze your cash. And it's really hard to prove where the money came from, because anything you would say is what other people would say who are being illicit.
what if that person's not putting that cash into the bank and they're buying gold, for example, and just keeping some bars of gold in a safety deposit or something like that?
Yeah, it's very common.
Can they get caught? Like, you know,
It's the same as anything.
Does HMRC think there's a couple of 100,000 going missing somewhere?
The people
they
who
beat
would
it?
be selling cash, gold in cash, are the same people. That person now becomes the person with the cash. So are they being legitimate? Maybe. Maybe they're keeping a receipt. Maybe they put that into their accountant and then there's a trail. Maybe it's not. It's really hard to... It's about being... It's common sense, isn't it? It's about having common sense. Purchasing long-term appreciating assets such as gold is an amazing idea. It's been around for millennia.
The oldest form of money, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
There was this article about, you know, HMRC are going to start, I don't know the exact figures. I think they were going to raise X amount of million from taxing the rich. And then all of these rich people just moved abroad, like these billionaires. Did you hear something about that?
Yes. This is a very common thing when certain political parties get into power. What do the rich and wealthy have? They have freedom of movement. Because if they take their business from the UK and they take it to a place where there's a lower tax rate, they are welcomed. And then, if a company is paying tax in the UK and then you increase the tax rate by 5% and they leave, you've lost the whole amount they were paying. That's human nature. A business is there to provide taxes to society by the people they employ too, not just the corporation tax.
Yeah. So what do you think of places like Dubai?
Dubai.
There's something that, you know, they've got 0% tax, and now I think if you earn about 100,000, they tax you about 7% now. They've brought that in through, you know, pressures politically, etc. But what do you think of moving like to Dubai to lower your taxes and stuff like that? Do you think that's a thing?
Absolutely. I think it's extremely common now. I think people need to do their full due diligence and work out if it works for them. You can set up a new company in Dubai. Well, the first thing to think about actually is you have personal taxes and corporate taxes. So if you register a company in another country, such as Dubai, you pay their corporate tax as long as the business is based there. Say you started a new media business and it was based in Dubai. The money you pay corporation tax on in Dubai, but you cannot access that personally without paying UK personal tax. That's half of the battle. And this again comes back to having a plan. If you plan to move to Dubai in 5 years' time and collect this cash over here, it's very tax efficient. If that is not your plan, what are you doing with the cash here? Then there's larger decisions at play. Am I able to move to a place and change my lifestyle? Is it somewhere I would like to live? Can I move? Do I have family who need me here? It's a massive decision. It's not always about the tax saving, it's about the lifestyle too. So I think this is why lots of people are moving to a place like Dubai where there's very little crime. It's a lot more expensive out there, but you get more for your money. I grew up in London my whole life. It's very dangerous in London and it's also expensive. Being in a place where it's safe and probably just as expensive has value. So it's about the intangible values. Look, Dubai is a very lucrative place for ambitious business owners because they will also be around other ambitious entrepreneurs where they'll learn from, and your network is absolutely everything. You could have somebody say, what are you trying to do? I used to have a business like yours, and they will save you 5 years with a few sentences because you may be climbing a ladder, but it's on the wrong wall. That's so key.
Tax planning, it's a little bit different to what you can get from your normal standard accountant.
Mhm.
Is that something you look at as well?
Yeah, we do the accounting side and the tax advice side.
So I remember back in 2017, I had a bunch of properties in my personal name, and I bought one, bought a second, bought a third, bought a fourth. And then all of a sudden, these tax rules came in that you're going to be you won't be able to claim your loans back,
Mhm.
on these properties that you're renting out. And I was just like, oh shit, that's what I do now. And the whole time I was saying to my accountant, I've opened a Barclays account for that property. I've opened a Lloyd's account for that one. I've opened a Halifax just to keep them separate. Now I'm opening sub accounts. Is this the right thing? And he goes, yeah, no problem. I was like, shall I open a business? Like, what's the difference between a business and personal? He goes, no difference. You're going to pay more fees in the business and stuff like that. And I was like, right, all right, let's keep it in the personal. Now I've got all of this sort of liability. What I really want to ask John is tax planning, things like inheritance tax. If you put properties, for example, in a company, is it as simple as just adding your next generation as a new director and everything just gets sort of passed on to a running company? Is that the most efficient way to pass on assets, or is there some, barriers there, or can you not just add anyone on that easily? How does that all work?
There's so much going on here, but it's not too complicated. There's a few vehicles. You have a trust, you have a holding company, you have a limited company. You should not be purchasing property in your personal name anymore. Years ago, much better mortgages, it was cheaper, you could claim the full finance cost. George Osborne came in, Section 24, he ruined it all for everybody. So now everybody who has a portfolio in their own name is trying to get it into a limited company. You mentioned inheritance tax planning. The shares of a limited company are the ownership of the value of the company. So if you move those around, you trigger capital gains tax if they're owned personally. So these things need to be set up correctly from day one. There's lots of options. You could have a family investment company, which is a limited company, alphabet shares with different rights. If there's minors in the company, you could put the growth of those shares into a bear trust. And this is very complex, but this is an option. So the value of the shares as it grows is outside of the estate for inheritance tax planning. By having a holding company own the shares to an investment company and a trading company, you've removed the person in the middle. So once you have profits from your trading company, you can pay a corporate dividend to the holding company to invest that into your property investment vehicle. There's so many ways of doing this, but it needs to be predetermined. And the first thing we do when we speak to somebody is say, what's your capacity to earn? What's your ambition to earn? And what's the end goal? Because without the end goal, we don't know where to position you. Naturally, 70% of the time, the simplest way of doing things is the best. Your finance costs when investing in property are your largest expense. When you start moving things around and making it more complicated, the banks see a little bit more risk. And when there's more risk, there's higher rates. When there's higher rates, there's less cash flow. There needs to be an equilibrium. Simple limited company SPV set up from day one with shares for ownership. It's a very good way of doing it, but you can get as complex as you want.
So you actually specialize in the property side of things in accountancy. Why have you chosen that?
Because I am a property investor. I have invested in cryptocurrency. I have invested in stocks and shares. That is not my thing. I cannot look at a phone every day and see it going up, going down, click a button, I've sold it. I want my investments to be a store of wealth, guaranteed, cash flowing, appreciating assets. That's my thing. All of my risk really is in the business. I love business. I've got the accountancy firm. I've got the Noble One network. I've got e-commerce companies. This is where I spend my time taking risk. And when I consolidate those gains, Now it goes into property. Property in the UK is guaranteed if you do not sell. And it's hard to panic sell a property like I did my portfolio.
So, do you think that property is still the way to go? If you're a property accountant, you're looking at numbers all day.
Mhm.
You're obviously looking at your own portfolio, but you're looking at other people's. Is it still lucrative to be in property?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Everything in property works, but you need a clear plan. A huge error we see is people come to us and they've got one buy to let, one HMO, one rent to rent, one serviced accommodation. They've not actually done anything well enough to reap the rewards. They've got a little bit of everything. You need a clear plan. If you're a buy to let investor, choose how much money you need per month, cash flow. Work out where you're purchasing, what you're purchasing, get it done. Clear vision. And then once you get to that point, reevaluate. Don't get this shiny object syndrome where, oh, people are speaking about this, oh, people are speaking about. That's not how you get there. HMOs are great for cash flow. Rent to rent is a trading business. That takes a lot of your time. Naturally, the more time you put into something, the more you get out of it because the sacrifice is your time. The way I invest is I'm completely hands off. I use deal sources to find the properties. They provide the building teams. They're all full renovations on every single property. I don't go to the properties. I don't want to hear from them. It's a store of wealth. Rents go up every year. Long-term property prices go up on average every 10 years. And leverage. If you purchase with your cash, it's not the best investment. If you put a deposit down and you have a mortgage and you control the asset, that is a very good investment. And you can't do that with many things.
What got you into property?
I kept investing in things and selling them and losing money and making money and losing money. And I wasn't really getting anywhere. My trading companies were profitable, but I didn't really know what to do with the money. So I just decided on the guaranteed thing. I will hold every property I have now when I die. Guaranteed. I try not to think about them. They're fully managed. I'm going to keep adding. It's guaranteed. If somebody tells you that something is guaranteed and there's no catch, why wouldn't you do it? But it's slow and boring. And naturally, we need to be entertained. All my investments gone up by 20%. Oh, it's come down by. I don't want to be entertained by my investments. I just want to know that in 5 years' time, it will be higher than it is now. In another 5 years' time, because it's a game of longevity, isn't it? Investing is a game of longevity. The longer you have to do the thing, the better the chance of it working. That's it. And I'm an accountant. I'm a numbers man. That works for me.
Definitely. I mean, a lot of people don't even look at time in the market. You've got to do your time. Sometimes loans do seem expensive at the time. Your profit margins are quite tight, but it's not forever. With inflation, cost of goods and services goes up. Also, rents also go up as well. And where you might be getting. So I bought one property in 2017, and I bought it out of London, and it was a place called Peterborough. And I bought it, and the mortgage was only peddly. It was about £224 a month, and I rented it for £650. I was like 300-400 quid, but it was more than bank interest what I put in this deal. And today, just look, fast forward, what is it, 8 years? It's on £1,400 a month. That's for doing nothing.
Nothing, yeah.
Doing nothing. It's just like, oh, the 2-year contract's finished. You look around in the market, and obviously, because property prices have increased, people pay more on their loans. They've increased the rental, and that's what people don't understand. Like, they're going, "Oh, you made a loss on that." Just exactly what you said. They're looking on the wrong time frames. So I want to go a little bit back in time, and I want to find out where this all started, because you're a very young entrepreneur. You're very creative. It looks like you like creating businesses, and once they're cash flowing, you know exactly where the store of wealth is. But a lot of people are lost in their lives. They don't have that direction. They've left school, university. They might have even done a degree and then gone, hey, there's just McDonald's still waiting for me, or M&S. I'm going to work in retail for a little bit, get a little bit of experience, but I don't really know what to do with my life. And I'll try and save a little bit of money, but I need money to make money. But I know your story is not like that. So it will be great to deep dive in, where did it all start from you, for you? Let's go back to when you're 10 years old.
10 years old. Wow. At that age, you're just doing what you enjoy. And it turns out I enjoyed washing cars for £5, walking up and down the roads, buying sweets, selling them at school.
Why?
That was, I guess, my dad had a business. So it was a very small business. He used to go to all of the restaurants in London and he'd supply them with any reusable thing, knives, forks. And then he would go to the manufacturers, the suppliers, and he'd get them cheap. He'd sell them. He had a massive book. He'd work 7 days a week and he loved it. That was his thing. I only ever saw him working. Although at that age, that's just your environment. That's all you know. So looking back, I could say that's why I guess I was doing that. But at the time, I just enjoyed it.
Seeing your dad work 7 days a week, did that change your sort of belief system as you know it now?
That was my normal. I don't look on that and think, I wish he didn't have to do that. That's what made him happy. He never sat still. And I think I've inherited that energy, I guess you would call it.
I love that sort of like dance floor what he's created, because my dad also worked 7 days a week, always in the shop.
Yep.
And so now in my head, I don't mind picking up the call on the oh no, we can't talk on the weekend.
And that's what we're competing with. And it's a numbers game. If somebody's doing the exact same thing, but you do 20 hours extra a week, you win. And I say win, I see it as a game. And everybody's playing the game, even if they're participating or not. And this is why I called it the entrepreneur's curse. I look at some people and I think, wow, they are so happy. They're just content.
Yeah.
I very rarely have that feeling. And I think that is the itch that makes me just want to do the next thing and the next thing. And when you speak to somebody, the reason I love what I do as an accountancy firm owner is I speak to the business owners and I can see the same thread in them that I have. And until I had this company, I didn't have the privilege, and I see it as a privilege to actually meet so many interesting people. They've all got a different story, but it's the same thing. It's the same heartbeat, the business, entrepreneurial way of doing things. It's a community. And I think that is just such a great thing to do as my career. Being around people I just feel inspired by.
When you say like you're driven by the next thing. I was watching this podcast on actually Stephen Bartlett, and there was a guy called Just Meat on it, and he said, look, basically the average person in America retires at 67, and the normal lifespan of that same person is 77. So there's 10 years after retirement, and he says, people work in a job that they don't like or don't like what they're doing, basically until retirement. And then when they retire, they literally say that they're doing this thing called retirement, and they literally just sit at home, and then just the TV comes on. They end up becoming overweight, and also mental health hits them because they lack something called purpose.
Yeah.
They have no purpose anymore. As soon as that happens, then all these thoughts, negative thoughts come. They don't have anyone to associate. It's their whole energy and aura. So I think people fail to acknowledge that if they are going to a destination of they want freedom, because as an entrepreneur, you're obviously gonna hit that retirement age sort of earlier with choice. There's gonna be a time where you've got your millions coming in or hundreds of thousands, and you're like, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to do that. Do you ever think to yourself, what am I going to do when these ideas, you don't want to do that? Is there an end goal, an end plan?
it never ends. It's impossible for it to end. The thing that scares me the most is knowing what the next 10 years look like. And as soon as I have some sort of, I guess, serenity, peace, call it what it is, I get scared and I think, okay, well, now this is working. Let's do the next thing and the next thing. But what's key is folding the new things into the core business. So I've got the accountancy firm, which is my core business. And I also I coach people on how to start a business, scale it, and invest. It's the same thing, but it's a little bit different. So you're using your core skill set for the next thing. You're not doing something completely different where you reset your skill set. No, you find out what you love, what you're good at, and you build off of that. It's like a tree. And then you're like, okay, let's branch out to here. Does this work? No, let's regress into the core business. Let's give this a go. Oh, I really like this. I could see this being another thing. And it grows from there. But the plan is always to just keep, I don't like calling it work. It's not work. It's just who I am. I drive my fiance insane. I just do not turn off.
As an entrepreneur, when you have a partner, do you think she needs to complement you by being the same entrepreneur, or does she need to be a completely different person?
I've incorporated my life partner into my business, and it's been a challenge and the best thing I've ever done. I've had businesses for 10 plus years, and you make some money. You don't really have to be anywhere at a certain point. You're content. But Tilly, my fiance, is working in London, going into London, back out, and I thought I need to be truly free, because flexibility is my thing. Like, I want to be able to make my own decisions when I want, whenever I want. I needed Tilly to have the same life, and there was two options. I provide everything, but she's much too smart and ambitious for that. Or I incorporate her into the business. Now she's my business partner, and I wouldn't be able to do what I do without her. I cannot comment on other people's relationships. I think some people need the opposite. Some people need the competition. I think it's been a journey. That's all I can say. I need somebody to calm me a little bit and say, slow down. This is what we'll do. And I'll think, okay, that's good, sound advice.
So what happens when you're in the boardroom and there's a disagreement?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, we're not doing this, and you ain't done this, or that hasn't happened, and who was responsible for this? And then you shut the door and then you're going home.
Yeah. Extremely tough. So we've actually conquered this, and now we have 2 external people. We have board meetings every month, and it cannot just be us 2, because that's not effective. Because you take the life circumstance into the board meeting, or you need objective clarity from an external source. So we've got our manager who's there with us, and I say to them, we're a team. I'm not your boss. You tell me exactly what I need to hear, as if you're not employed. And we also have somebody else in there.
Wow. So it's doing it jointly with other people around.
It's a
have
learning
different
curve.
Thoughts and opinions in there. So it's not just you said, she said.
Personalities too. So I can't give any advice on this because we're all very different people. You may have somebody who's much calmer than I am, who needs the opposite. They might need somebody like me who's trying to always change things and improve things. And it's a formula.
Who inspires you?
Who inspires me? Wow. It sounds cliche. I just went through lots of business people in my mind, but it's my dad. Yeah, he's the guy who I owe it all to. He's 82. He's still doing his thing. He's not working. He's still working out. He's still trying his hardest. He's the person who inspires me.
That is quite rare. Quite rare to hear somebody so humble and so, just giving the thanks to the creator, basically, the guy who made you. Because a lot of people have competition with their parents, that I'm better than him. Oh, he didn't give me the right support. Society is changing very, very fast. A lot of people are just on phones, they're losing that relationship, they're scrolling endlessly, they'll lash out and stuff. What do you think is the difference, of the childhood that you had with your dad that other people could be missing out on? What should people be mindful of?
Everybody is just doing the best with what they had growing up, their experience, their life. My life was, I'm very thankful. I'm very fortunate to have a family unit, but everybody has bad things in their story. My mum was an alcoholic my entire life, and my dad was working 7 days a week, which means he wasn't always there, but everything he did was for the family. He had old money knowledge of work hard, pay down the mortgage, own the house in cash, whereas we're the opposite now. Let's get leverage, let's get growth. Like, he doesn't understand that. So just understanding that everybody is doing the best with what they have, including you, including me. And then when our kids are grown up, they will have been passed down the best versions of ourselves. So when I look back, I was very angry in my early 20s at my parents and things that happened. And books changed everything for me, gave me a completely different perspective. But looking back, I realized that they were just doing the best with what they had, and nobody's perfect.
You mentioned your mum was alcoholic.
Mm.
What does that mean? Like, she just like to have a drink during the day or something? Or
From my life, I've realized that only somebody who has experience with an alcoholic understands it. It's really hard to describe. And as you're growing up, it's all you know. So you don't have a juxtaposition between, oh, this is what normal is and this isn't what normal is. So only looking back can I break down what happened. It's tough. It's not normal. And it's not until you get a little bit older and then you speak to other people and they look at it externally and they say, wow, are you okay? That's not normal. And you start questioning yourself and you think, oh, that's all I know. It's really hard to describe, but I know that people who have had experience with that, with family members, understand it fully, and it's a challenge.
so going back to when you're 10 years old and you're washing cars and you're selling sweets in school, did you say the price went up when the gate closed?
Oh, as soon as that gate closed, I doubled the price. I just couldn't work out why people didn't go to the shop before school. So, remember the 1 penny sherbets?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd get there early. I'd take every single one, get in. And as soon as the gate closed, it's a free market, isn't it? So they couldn't go anywhere else to get them. And I just used to walk around with my pockets filled up with 5 and 10p's and 20p's. And break time was the best lesson.
And what was you doing with the money?
Just reinvesting it. I'd go to...
Till you bought the shop.
Well, it started at just buying sweets, and then I found, I guess, what was a wholesaler, Netto's, in Peckham, and you'd buy the crate of Pepsis, and they'd be 15 pence rather than 20. So it's the same business as what people do now. You buy low, you sell high, you make a profit, you keep some, you reinvest some.
And what did your parents think of you doing this?
I would imagine, I was very young. I think I was 11 or 12. I imagine my dad was very proud, and I remember him freezing the Lucasades for me and giving them to me in the morning. So he probably facilitated that more than I. It probably wasn't my idea. My mum wasn't a fan. She said, just go to class, stop it.
You don't need to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. And so what was your first instant of working? So obviously that was in the playground.
Mhm.
When did you get a proper sort of job or
My
part-time
first job, I was a forklift driver on my gap year, and I was up at 3 a.m. I was working with a friend's father, but he was a businessman. He had this warehouse and he supplies all of the shops, everything, Coke, sweets, massive warehouse. And I was the forklift driver.
That's a good job,
I was so happy.
Yeah,
I was so happy.
Did you have to do, what skill did you have to pass for that?
I won't say any names of who I was working for, but there was no I turned up, I was 16. He said, "Here's the keys, let's go." I loved it.
Any accidents? Did you have to
No, it
tilt
was
them
good. That was
things?
pretty
And,
good. Yeah,
you
it
know,
was a
some
good
of them
skill.
things are really high
Yeah,
up
yeah.
there.
Oh, a few things toppled over, but it's part of the business, isn't
Happens,
it?
innit?
So yeah, I did that for 3-4 months, but again, I spent most of my time speaking to the guy about the business, where he was getting it, how much he was paying, what was working, what wasn't working, permits. I love the business side of it. So yeah, I was collecting cash, and I didn't really have. When you're 16, there's not much to really spend it on, so it's just building up. And I eventually used that to go to auctions, purchase things from auctions to resell, and just
What sort of auctions are we
John
talking?
Pye auctions. Have you heard of them?
No, what's
I
that?
googled an auction. It's so if the police confiscate things, they sell them on for a profit.
What's it called?
John Pye auctions. Oh, it's so fun.
John Pye.
John Pye auctions.
Oh, wow.
We're not sponsored, but yeah, and I use that cash to. I remember purchasing iPhones and just random things, and you'd go on the auction website, you'd go on eBay, and you'd see the disparity between the price, and go from there.
Is it cheap in there?
It's an auction. Sometimes there's a bargain. Sometimes people are bidding things up. You get two people who really want something, then
then it price goes up.
yeah, that's it.
Okay, so you were buying stuff off auction, and then what would you do? Just sell it on eBay or something, or
Sell it. We ended up making our own Shopify sites, and we really bootstrapped. So this led into. So I went to university, studied biology. Once I graduated, I didn't want to pursue that.
what got you into biology? Because you're an entrepreneur, you want to do buying and selling, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden you're going into sales.
The school system doesn't want you doing that. They don't make it easy for that. There's no entrepreneurship degree. It's very old 1850s design classrooms. You go to a lecture, you write. It's not a real life skill. It doesn't really equip you for life. I wanted to be free very early. And back then, that was just a figure. It was, if I make this amount, I will have my time to do what I want. I studied biology. The best thing about that is I was an international student. So I went to America, really had to grow up. I was by myself, came back to Manchester, graduated. And then I looked at the job prospects and I thought, oh my God, this is awful. The only option is to carry on studying. I got offered a PhD with the professor who I did my dissertation with, and it was another 3.5 years of debt and uncertainty after that. So I started reading and every business book I could get my hand on. And then we went into the buying and selling things with my best friend, Ben, full time.
Are any of them books that really helped you?
Books are amazing. So you can read a book at a different point in your life and it's a completely different book. I like Stoicism. I like Marcus Aurelius. Felix Dennis for business. The 88 Path, and it's a crass name, but How to Get Rich, and it's really effective. It's very to the point. He's a fantastic entrepreneur. Everybody says Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but that is a very pivotal book in understanding assets and liabilities, and it's not as complicated as the system makes it appear. Everything. I love reading. I spent most of the last 10 years just reading.
And how did you know how to set up your Shopify account?
Google. Just Google. How do I do this? Okay. Oh, you need a payment processor. How do I do that? All of the information is out there for free. And if you look at somebody doing something, you can do it too. All it is a little bit of information, and it's all free. YouTube, Google. This was 10, 12 years ago, before AI. Now it's almost too easily accessible that people won't even bother because it's too easy. Unless there's a challenge, unless people pay for something, they're not invested in that thing. So we bootstrapped everything. We created our Shopifys. We found products to sell. And then we thought, okay, if we're going to do this seriously, we need to go to the source of everything. So we got on a plane to China.
Yeah.
We went to the Canton Fair.
Wow. What was China like?
That was crazy. Absolutely crazy. A completely different world. This was 12 years ago. We have made connections. We still have a team of people who work for us in China on an e-commerce business who have worked with us 10 plus years. Complete trust. We send back payments, so there's no bank fees. We meet them. We go out to China and they show us around. They take us to the hotels, the factories. Jim and Yoki, if you're watching, hello. Yeah, so
Is it dangerous there?
it's hard to know. We didn't have any trouble, but it seemed back then it seemed like not a lawless place, but it could be dangerous.
What does that mean?
It means lots of dark streets. The scale of everything's large. You don't understand anything about, or I didn't understand anything about the culture or the people. We just got on a plane. We went to the Chinese embassy. We got a visa. We turned up and we said, where do we go now? We went to the Canton Fair. I think it's 1 million square meters. And we were walking up and down the aisles. And that place is the future. So everything you see there is what you start seeing in the marketplace 2 or 3 years later. And it's really eye-opening. E-scooters, all of those things, they're all there before you see them everywhere. Everything. So if you go there now, it's what you'll see in 2 or 3 years.
Why is China like so ahead like that?
It's a good question. I'm not sure. They have a massive workforce, but it's a completely different place to the West. And they have a massive advantage, I think, because of the amount of people there.
Did you see a lot of different kind of foods being cooked there, by the way?
Yeah, lots of suspect foods.
Suspect.
Yeah, we went to, so nothing's in English. At that point, we didn't get an interpreter, but we did for the future times. Yeah, it was just, we had no idea what we were eating.
Because I saw this video the other day, and this guy goes, and he was from India, and he goes, I am just eating this lovely food from China, and he goes, this is good chicken, and he goes, huh? And then the guy just looks at it and goes, meow, meow.
I saw that.
It's just like, oh shit, and the guy was like, pfft. But like, what do you mean suspect food? I want to go back to
We
that.
had no idea what we were eating, and people
Right.
were looking at us, watching us eat things, and we left a few restaurants because of that. But this was a very long time ago. I'm not
Yeah.
not
But your
insinuating anything.
stomach was good.
Yeah,
Fine.
good, strong stomach.
Yeah. And what else did you see in China apart from the business side? You know, have you like traveled much?
Yeah, I have traveled to quite a few places. So I went to Louisiana State University, which living in a place and traveling to a place is very different. It became home, and I didn't know anybody there, so you really had to grow up. But yeah, travel and freedom, that's what the businesses give me. That's my key goal. I don't want a massive office in London where I have to be with 50 staff. I want the flexibility to be able to go somewhere with the laptop and manage and maintain and experience things. That's what's really important to me.
What does traveling do for you? So if somebody goes, I don't want to travel, I'm all right here. What's all of these other places to go? What do you learn when you travel?
It's the most underrated thing for personal growth. It opens your eyes to the world. Every place has the same fundamental values. So I look at a family. You look at a family in China, India, England, New Zealand. It's the same. That's my son. I love him. That's my daughter. That's my wife. Everybody is the same. Your environment shapes you naturally from day one until your final day. And if you are not putting yourself in all of these different places, which is the easiest way to do it, but by putting yourself in different environments and seeing how other people do things and how other people live, it opens your eyes. And I don't think it gets enough credit. People think it's a luxury, but I think it's a necessity once you can do it to grow.
So you went to China and you started buying some products out there, I suppose.
Yeah. So this was around the time of we called them Swegways. I don't know if that was the official name. That was our
right.
brand.
Is it the one with no hands?
Yeah, you stand on it
balancing.
and you can move
The
around.
one that Mike Tyson.
Yeah,
feels,
precisely.
That one.
That's the one. So we we didn't have a lot of money and they were quite expensive. I think we had around £5,000 or £6,000 at that time. So we purchased 10, found a supplier, came back to England, hoped that they arrived. They arrived and we thought, okay, we've got 10 of these. We made a Wix store. This was before Shopify, got the payment processor and we sold them. And I remember the first sale. I woke up, my business partner, texted me. And I read the text and he sent me the invoice of the sale. And I think it was £380. And at this point, I knew nothing about business, really. It was the very first thing we did. And it was the most exhilarating feeling getting the first sale ever. I will never forget that. It's the best thing ever. And when you launch a new product or a new business, that first income generating thing is the best feeling. We sold the first one and I just remember thinking, oh my God, we need more. So we sold those 10, put the money back in, ordered 20, but the lead time was at least a month. So we were paying more for quicker shipping, which cut into the margins. 20 arrived, sold those just as easily. And we just got really carried away. We thought we had made it. We thought this is easy. Why is everybody not doing this? Sold 20, sold 40. We got up to a order of 200, 5-figure orders, very young, no experience. And they arrived, but they got switched at the airport with another order of 200 Swegways. So there was two things here. It was a different brand, and we didn't know this, but none of them worked. So we sold them all, and then we started getting emails, chargebacks. Oh, this is broken, this is broken. We had nothing in place to facilitate the fixing of it. And I think 3 months later, we were applying for jobs. All of our money was frozen. It was the first realization of it's not actually that easy. It was the first learning curve. And looking back, you've heard the thing, fail fast. You need to keep failing. But when you're young and that's the first thing that happens, you're just in panic mode. And you don't have anybody around you usually to say, it's okay, keep going. Usually everybody's saying, told you so, go get a job. So we started applying for jobs. And then I remember sitting down at a table and we said, we need to fix this. So we started from scratch again, pretty much. We came out of that with no profit, but it wasn't a loss. And then we went from there. So the first thing we learned was no electronics, because electronics can break. And then no really expensive products, because a refund on an expensive product is a big hit. So we just curated what we were doing and refined it. And yeah, we never really stopped. We still do that today.
How do people find your products?
So it's been a journey over the last 10 years. PPC ads, TikTok's really good. Instagram ads. Amazon's very good. Amazon does the marketing for you. It's all about trust, isn't it? So when you go on Amazon, you know it will arrive. You know if there's something wrong, you can get your money back. So Amazon's a very good place to sell things.
Where'd you go from there? What's the next step?
There were quite a few businesses between there. We carried on selling things. We sold 100 plus different items. And then we found a product that worked really well at festivals. And I think we were 23, 24. So we were going to all of the festivals, which is amazing. People were paying to go to festivals. We were just paying for the stall. And we were selling products there. It was this big inflatable air lounger, worked really well, made good money. We had another business partner then, and he owned restaurants. And we did a whole circuit for the year. And we were speaking, when you work at the festivals, you speak to all of the other people selling things. And the pizza vans were making £50,000 a weekend. And two things happened. In our naivety, we said, can't be that hard. But we also believed we could do it. And Nick, having restaurants, peri peri chicken restaurants, he's a yes man. He said, yeah, let's do it. A year later, we turned up at the festivals with big catering trailer, lots of chicken, lots of branding, personal loans. And they put us in the corner of campsite Z with no footfall. And the first thing we realized is the people making the money have been doing it for 10 to 15 years, or they're paying the festival organizers cash to get the best spot. That business was a disaster.
Oh.
A disaster.
Did you sell a chicken?
We sold about 4 burgers, I think. And I cannot cook. I don't enjoy cooking. So the plan was we'd get the trailer, we would do a few shows ourselves, learn the process, put staff in, repeat the process. Very capital intensive, very capital. You need to have all of the equipment. You need to wait for the festival season. You need to hope it's not raining before you can potentially make a sale. A business now, what we do is you want to be able to generate cash from the idea to make sure it works, such as selling a product. You can put up an ad. If you're renting a room, you can put up an ad and say, what's the demand? See how many people apply for it. And then you can say, okay, I'll go and buy a property there. I've proved there's demand. With that business, there was none of that. It was, let's get all of the debt, let's buy everything, turn up, and then just hope. I'm not in the business of hoping anymore. But everything we did then got us to this point.
Wow. So how do you overcome them losses? Like, you said you got a personal loan, you bought all of this equipment. Did you have to sell the equipment after? Or did you lease it? Like, how did all of the, tying it all up? Because that's the whole mess as well.
Really tough. Mentally, it's really, really tough. There's no easy way to get through those things. But once you've done it once or twice, you look back on the other times and you just know you're here now. It doesn't last forever. What is the worst case scenario? Okay. Once you know what the worst case scenario is, you can build off of that.
Isn't it like you've dug yourself a hole and you have to fill it up before you even go forward?
Yeah.
Like, if you've got loans to pay, how do you pay these loans off?
Yeah, we paid them off personally for 5 years. Never missed a payment. But that has given me perfect credit. And I do believe that whenever there's a setback, there's an equal, maybe not equal, but there's a benefit from it. You'll never get the time back, and time is literally everything. So that period of time was wasted. But now I know what not to do. And if you are a business owner and you're going to have lots of businesses, you will have losses. You will have businesses that fail. Things will happen. But you need to just understand that as long as 1 or 2 of them work and they can last, it's all worthwhile. That's the goal. So as long as the goal is to have one business that provides for your family, yourself, give you the flexibility, the 10 businesses that failed are literally just stepping stones to get there. And there's no real passive income. To get the passive income, you need to do the 10 years. It's not very passive. It's a journey. And people talk about the 10,000 hours. I believe with good guidance, you can do it in 3 or 4 years if you're really working and you don't make mistakes. But naturally, with the mistakes, it's a 10-year process.
For sure. I want to ask you a little bit about your mentorship. So when you help other people, there's so many clever marketers out there. And there's I can see that you've got a wealth of knowledge. You've got a running business. You've had many experiences trying to start up other businesses, traveling, meeting suppliers, having a go, setting up shops, ads. So I could see the value in that. But how do you compete with somebody who's running more ads than you and promising the world to, people out there? Because it feels like we're just lost in a sea of coaches and mentors around now.
Yeah. Social proof. Most people, if somebody's had a business and they're coaching, they've had 1 or 2 businesses, having an accountancy firm is a very unique position because I can view hundreds of businesses instantly and I see what works, I see what doesn't work, I see the mistakes. And because of that company, it allows me to, and my core offering is very simple. It's 3 things. I show people how to start the business because without control and ownership, you don't have anything. You need the control. That's phase 1. Then once you've got the business, you need to avoid the mistakes, which is where I can show you the blueprint of what other people do. And then once you've got the business making money, you need to consolidate the capital into something that works for you, but property is a very tax efficient way of doing it. So it's start the business, have control, have freedom of your time, scale it up. The goal is £10,000 profit pre-tax per month, cash flowing in a business gives you flexibility to do things. And then getting that cash into assets, long-term, lifelong assets, so it's worthwhile, because a lot of people get to phase 2 and then they get sued, the business doesn't work, AI replaces it, something happens. A trading business is volatile. So the main thing is making sure you've made it worthwhile by consolidating assets.
What do you think of people who say, "Oh, I'm not going to pay somebody to teach me this"? Like, information.
It's all free.
All out there. Yeah. Well, why can't you just help me for free? It's just one question, bro.
Yeah. It's a very costly way of thinking. I believe the more you help people, the more you get helped. So I am quite helpful. I did 1,000 free sales calls for the accountancy firm to get it where it is. Now I charge because what we have learned from the client base alone is so valuable. You can't expect things for free. You have to, and also if you don't pay for something, you don't value it. There are people selling courses for £1, £10,000 or £100,000. It could be the same thing. The people who spend more are more invested and they will make it work for themselves because they have to.
What's your next idea?
My next idea is the Noble One Network. We're creating a community for business owners where what I didn't have growing up, apart from my father, is people who said, yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, go for it. This is how you do it. A community of people trying to do what you're trying to do are a few steps ahead always, because if there's enough people in the community, you can bring people along and you gain knowledge from each other. This is why it's the three processes. It's one person at different phases in the journey. They start the business, they scale it, they invest. It's one avatar. That is what we are doing now. We're creating that community, and it's free. The community is free, where people help each other. They share knowledge. I answer questions. I do weekly Q&As for the masses. If you want to work with us one-on-one, there's a cost. But I want to have an impact for young business owners or people who are fed up of working for other people in a job they don't like because they feel trapped, when really it's only 2 or 3 pieces of information that will help them do something they're good at and probably could make money from right away. It's never been easier.
Love that, man. How do I join?
I'll send you the link.
But links in your bio, yeah?
Yeah, links in my bio.
Love that, man. Is there something else that you wanted to cover in this pod before we wrap this one up?
The quality of the people around you is everything, and it doesn't have to be a physical person. It could be the books you read, it could be the YouTube channels you listen to, networking. The quality of the people around you will help you get to where you're going, wherever that may be, 50 times faster. Help people and you will be helped. Don't expect anything in return, and just keep going. It's not easy being an entrepreneur. It's a really lonely journey, but it's worth it.
So what's this thing about you want to create a library?
Oh, my library. I'm obsessed with reading. I attribute everything to the books, and I've kept every single book I've ever read. And where I live is overflowing with books. And I'm going to create this is what drives me, the end goal. When I'm 50, 60, whatever it is, I'm going to have that home library, the dark wood oak, the spiral staircase, the sliding. That's the vision. So I need to just keep reading because there's a few more books.
I wish I could read, but I don't really it hurts my head. I read like a page and I'm like, what did I just read?
Yeah.
So I just like listen to audiobooks, to be honest.
That's a lot more effective.
I just like to be in the car. Like this morning from my home to here is like 45 minutes. I'm just driving, just downloaded information, And sometimes you can listen to books again twice, as you say, they mean different things at different times as well. I love reading a little bit of 50 Cent.
Yeah.
I like real life people
Yeah.
who made it, the rags to riches. Even Kevin Hart, you can't make this up. What a book, man. Like, his dad was like a drug addict, and you just think he's this funny guy in movies or on stage, isn't it? But it's just so inspiring, just different ways that we consume. If there's someone at home right now, do you have one final message for them?
My final message is to listen to everybody, but ignore 99 of them, because if you ask somebody a question, you will 100% get an answer, but only listen to people who have done what you're trying to do or have what you want to have.
Solid advice, man. I like that. And how can everybody follow you?
If you go to Instagram, it's king_nobes. Yeah, that's my main platform. On my Instagram is where I'm posting daily. I post tax videos. I'm in the process of creating a YouTube channel, but if you go to my Instagram, king_nobes, you'll find everything there.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on today. And that's it for today, guys. I hope you really enjoyed that episode. I know I did. I was even more inquisitive because I want to find out all of the tax loopholes, anywhere where I can think more smartly, how to make more money. And yeah, entrepreneurship is a lonely journey. There's a lot of us at home right now probably thinking, I failed at this business. I should have done better. You're not alone. I've had many failed businesses. John's already told us about so many times he's failed, but today he has a massive accountancy firm and other ventures and business. So it's not the end. Failure is part of success. And if that's one message we can give you today, it's that. So until next time, we'll see you then. And just before I go, make sure you smashed the subscribe button and we see you next time. Peace.